of Terror review was supposed to be my last episode for a little while, but much like the guy we're talking about this week, every time I think I take a bit of a break, I keep getting pulled back in. By now, a lot of you have probably listened to last week's Art of Wrestling podcast, in which CM Punk broke his silence about his departure from WWE earlier this year, and man did he deliver. You really should listen to the whole thing if you haven't yet. I'm posting a link to it on this video, but just in case you haven't heard, here are some of the juiciest parts from that interview. Punk said that every once in a while he would take time off to get surgery, but he would be called back onto television well before he was healed up. He said his programs with Ryback took years off of his life because of how dangerous Ryback is in the ring. He felt that he deserved to be in the main event of WrestleMania 29 in, I guess, a triple threat match with Cena and The Rock for the title. And if that wasn't the case, then he should at least be paid main event money in his match with The Undertaker. But of course, neither of those things happened. There were several occasions in which Vince asked Punk to do something for the company and that he, quote, owed him one. Punk contracted a MRSA staph infection in his lower back that went untreated for several months because it was never correctly diagnosed until after he left the company. WWE's doctor, Chris Amon, apparently spent the entire time refusing to cut out the infection. He also gave Punk the wrong kind of antibiotics for all those months that Punk was suffering from the MRSA, which, by the way, caused Punk to shit his pants during a match on SmackDown. On the day that he left, Punk had a meeting with Vince and Triple H in which he went on a tirade critiquing the entire company culture, during which allegedly Triple H gritted his teeth the entire time. The company withheld a pair of Punk's royalty checks. Then they wanted to claim that Punk was retroactively in breach of contract back in January, even though they didn't fire him until June. They fired CM Punk on his wedding day. But finally, Punk lawyered up and was able to reach a settlement with WWE in which he got, quote, everything he wanted. Now, to be clear, this podcast was only one man's side of the story. It wasn't meant to be a complete takedown of the company. It was just meant to be CM Punk's depiction of what he went through for his last 2 or 3 years at the company. But even if it's just his story, any part of those story makes WWE look really bad. It makes them look unprofessional, petty, and downright neglectful at times. The scariest revelation to me in that interview was how badly they screwed up diagnosing Punk's MRSA when he was with the company. I mean, I've had MRSA before, okay? It's no joke. If the company's top doctor is either unable or unwilling to properly treat or diagnose this horrific staph infection for one of their top tier guys, imagine, do you think he neglects lower tier guys like that too? And let's not even go into how lax, allegedly, their concussion testing is. I mean, according to Punk, on the day he left the company, they put him through a concussion test, but he was texting Colt Cabana and listening to music on his headphones while he was doing it. Doesn't sound very legit to me. It's been said for a long time by a lot of different people how WWE has never really held the safety and well-being of their talent in very high regard. And, you know, this story by CM Punk really only adds another layer to that legend. This interview was really the cherry on top of the bad PR Sunday WWE has had this year. I mean, from the growing pains of the network from the very beginning, to Alberto Del Rio and Ricardo Rodriguez's claims that there is institutional and systemic racism flowing throughout the company, and now this, I mean, short of another wrestler dying on their watch, you can't have much of a worse year than this. I don't think Punk is lying about any of this, but I think we as fans need to get some more perspective. I think we need to hear an honest take from WWE's side of the story, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. Earlier this week on Steve Austin's podcast, Vince McMahon said that the whole wedding day firing thing was an unintentional, unfortunate coincidence, and that Vince apologized on that front, and that he said someday he would like CM Punk to come back possibly, which it's a nice sentiment if he meant it, but considering that he's relinquished so much of the talent-related power over to Triple H, who was a big target in this interview that Punk had, I don't think that's ever going to happen. And other than Vince's take about CM Punk on Steve Austin's podcast, there has been no word from anyone in WWE. I, for one, would just love it if they addressed the whole MRSA situation and how the doctors deal with their medical issues with their talent, because that is just horrifying to hear. I think it was great that CM Punk broke his silence in this way. People have been clamoring for an explanation from him for months, and here they finally get one, and it's a bit of a doozy. Now, I don't think, there's probably going to be some people who are hating on Punk after he walked out, and I don't think this interview is really going to sway their opinion. They're still going to think he's a quitter. But ultimately, all that really matters is what Punk thought was best for Punk. Anyone who's followed CM Punk's career knows that he's always marched to the beat of his own drum. He always does things his way. And, he felt that he deserved better. He fought tooth and nail for what he felt that he deserved. He felt he didn't get enough respect. And then when he didn't get the things he wants or he felt he deserved, he felt, well, you know what? I'm treading water, I'm hurt, what am I doing here? And he left. And he went out on his own terms. You can't fault the guy for that. Punk's comments also confirm what a lot of people have been murmuring for a long time, that WWE's glass ceiling is now stronger and more impenetrable now than it's ever been. The fact that Vince will go on Steve Austin's podcast and say that the current roster is not ambitious enough is totally laughable. Yeah, they're not ambitious enough because they see what happens when guys with ambition, like CM Punk, go ahead and do their own ambitious thing. Nothing happens. So what's the motivation? Why be ambitious? CM Punk wanted to change the system when he dropped that infamous pipe bomb promo 3 years ago. And you could argue that in the time between then and now, really not much has changed. And there might have been a quick change and then went back to the status quo. But one would think that with this much egg on the company's face after such a groundbreaking interview, wouldn't you hope that the culture at WWE would change a little bit? At the very least, you think they could diagnose staph infections a little better? So what did you think about CM Punk's interview? Did it change your perception of the wrestler? What about of WWE? Leave a comment below. I look forward to hearing what you have to say about this subject. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and leave a thumbs up for this video. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.